Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm here to have a very important role. I'm the master of ceremony, and I have a lot of energy, so I'm going to give you a lot of energy. And as we were discussing right away, it feels like it's a family gathering, you know? People that know each other, but more importantly, want to do good in the world and are so thrilled to join forces. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to somebody very important. Somebody that is important not just because he's the co-founder and the president of the organization, but somebody that is important because the world needs dreamers, as we all know, and the world needs doers. But this person, this gentleman, is a dreamer who does. Without further ado, welcome Bernard Giraud.
Well, it's too much. So very happy to be here tonight and to see all these friendly faces. We are many tonight, but there are many more online. We are about 500 people attending this discussion, this conversation about an important topic, which is carbon market. But we will discuss it's more than about carbon market, carbon credits. So I am very happy to share with you the position paper that many of you probably have had time to read, I guess. What I would like to say first is that it's not an opinion. It's not a good thought because there is a COP approaching. What we will share tonight is the fruit, the product of many years of experience with you all, with investors, with NGOs, with different partners in many parts of the world. So what we will discuss tonight is the accumulation of experience, sometimes nice ones, sometimes more difficult, but it's really rooted in the practice, in experience. We believe that the voices of farmers, but also investors, all those who are practitioners, should be heard. That's the reason why we decided to organize this little meeting and also to produce this paper, which will be, of course, shared with different people in situation of making decision at COP30 in Brazil. Today we will talk about rules. We have to, because rules, when they are fair, are enabling us to make progress. But beyond the rules, the real topic of tonight is not just the rules, the regulation, the standards, the certification. It's the interrelationship between humankind and nature. What we mean by the expression of nature-based solution is a bit misleading. Of course, nature-based solutions are based on nature, but in fact they are implemented by human beings. So, if we don't look at humans, who are the closest to nature, the one whose lives depend on nature, on soil, on water, on climate, do we think we can succeed on nature-based solutions? There are 600 million farms in the world. 90% of those farms are family farms. Not all of them are small farms. But small farms, the definition of FAO of small farms is below 2 hectares, produce 1/3 of the world food needs. So it's not negligible, it's not marginal. The vast majority of those poor, small farmers are very poor, and they are directly exposed to the effect of climate, of soil degradation, of collapse of biodiversity. So empowering those farmers to implement sustainable agriculture is not something negligible. It's not marginal. It's for them, but it's also for us. Soil are the second major sink of carbon in the world after ocean. So if we help farmers restore soil, we help us as well. So in improving the practices of those farmers has a dual effect on them and on us. And beyond the farmers, we can see in many places where we operate that there is a direct link between farmers' poverty and the remaining part of wildlife. How can we believe that we can protect natural parks where there is a high treasure of biodiversity if the surrounding communities living close to the park are in extreme poverty? The pressure, the human pressure on the remaining wildlife will not last. So we believe that, and it's very much rooted in the history of livelihoods, that there is no ecology without social justice. In this context, carbon financing is not a magic tool. It cannot solve all the problems we face. But it can be a positive contribution, especially in the context of shrinking public funding. If we look at how we operate at Livelihoods and many other actors in this field of carbon finance, on the one hand, large companies, they are committed to reducing their carbon footprint and to reach zero net at one point, 2040, 2050. They have decided, of course, to reduce their emission within their value chain and to compensate, to offset the remaining part, the emission they cannot reduce. On the other hand, we have the farmers and rural communities, an ecosystem that can help store carbon in soils and trees, and doing that, improving their livelihoods. So this virtuous model inspired the creation of Livelihoods when we started in 2008, 2009. And this is what we have been trying to implement over the past 15 years. With the companies that have invested long-term, taking risk on project, 20 years, upfront funding, quite risky from a pure financial, point of view. Now, what we have done is not huge, but we have improved 100,000 hectares. 2 million people have benefited from the livelihoods funds, from 42 projects in different parts of the world. And those projects will sequestrate 5 million tons, have already sequestrated 5 million tons, and 30 more to come if things go well. So in the context of climate acceleration, this can be very small, and it is. But it's not negligible. If we are able to increase the flow of investment in nature-based solutions, we will have an impact, but we will have an impact provided that this project have a positive context. And this is the topic of tonight. How can we create the favorable condition to increase the flow of private investment in nature-based solutions, especially nature-based solutions with smallholder farmers? And we are a bit worried, to be frank. When I say we, it's the Livelihoods team, my colleagues, but also all our partners. Why? Because we see some trends which are not favorable. I will just mention a few of them. For example, rules that impose 30 to 100 years of permanence. Is it realistic and fair to impose to a small farmer such a constraint when he is 50-year-old with a life expectancy below 70 and very very much exposed to uncertainty in his business. Long tenure certificates. They are required. It is to protect smallholders on carbon rights, which is okay. But however, in many developing countries, customary land rights remain the predominant and legitimate form of governance. And this system already provides effective protection for farmers. Why do we impose a narrow, Western-centric view of land rights and on other contractual frameworks? It is counterproductive. Respect of local realities. Of course, respect of universal human rights is one thing. It is key. No discussion. But a deep understanding and a genuine respect for local culture is also important. Carbon projects should not be perceived by local communities as a means to impose ways of living from outside. Cultural diversity is an asset. It is not an obstacle. Reporting serves an important function, but its current weight on processes has become disproportionate. Project developers must now provide extensive documentation, social safeguards, environmental co-benefits, potential negative impact, safeguard disclosures, grievance mechanism. At Livelihoods, we have observed an increase of around 15 to 20% in project budget due to reporting obligation, with project managers spending up to 30% of their time on monitoring and documentation rather than on-the-ground implementation. Investment must benefit field action rather than remunerate an army of intermediaries. The increased complexity is a direct trade-off with impact. It is done for the sake of integrity. We can understand that. But integrity without pragmatism risks becoming integrity without impact. If rules are written for theoretical perfection rather than real-world adoption, they will exclude the communities that need most. Let's be clear and avoid any misunderstanding. There is no doubt that voluntary carbon market project must demonstrate measurable and reliable impact. Since Livelihoods' creation 15 years ago, carbon finance projects have been assessed by independent auditors and certified by rigorous international standards. No discussion about that. The progress of science and technology now offers new opportunities to refine carbon models, strengthen data management, and improve field verification. This scientific and methodological dynamism is healthy. It enhances credibility and supports the sustainable development of VCM. However, smallholder nature-based solutions require realism and pragmatism. Implementing a reforestation project on 10,000 hectares with 5,000 small farmers is not the same thing as planting 10,000 hectares of a monospecies in a property owned by a large agribusiness. Both can generate carbon credits, but project design, implementation, and impacts are different. Our experience makes us believe that methodologies should consider two guiding principles. One, field compatibility. The VCM should not reflect a one-sided vision. They should consider and reflect the diverse field realities. They must be tested and validated by those applying them on the ground. A dialogue with implementers combined with proven feasibility in practice is key to fostering trust, robustness, and scalability. Second principle, prioritizing movement over perfection. We should remember that complexity causes hesitation, delays, and slowdowns, resulting in less sequestration, less resilience gains, and less community benefits. Yet, climate change allows us no time to wait. We urge the ecosystem of VCM to prioritize pragmatism over perfection, valuing action and progressing learning over the counterproductive security of waiting for perfect evidence. What do we prefer? Very few perfect projects or many imperfect projects? At the end of the day, what will be the impact at global level? In the position paper you have received, we propose a few directions to unlock investment in NBS. First, to recognize the specificity of carbon projects with smallholder farmers. The market lacks a standardized definition of smallholder farmers for NBS projects, whether in terms of farm size, number of farmers, yearly volume of mitigation outcomes. To unlock their full potential, the ecosystem should converge around a recognized definition that can be adapted to regional specificity. Second proposition, we should leverage the risk buffer to account for smallholders-led NBS projects. To address, for those who ignore the mysteries of carbon methodologies, to address risk on non-permanence, standards withhold a share of carbon credit and place them in a buffer. For NBS project, especially with smallholders, this buffer is larger, up to 25%, which is understandable because they are seen as more exposed to long-term risk, adding to the natural challenges faced by projects with smallholders. But we believe that if we want to foster investment in those smallholder NBS projects, we should play the solidarity between different types of projects. We believe that this additional risk adjustment for smallholder projects should be removed and managed collectively across project types through the existing buffer pool mechanism. There is no reason why NBS projects should run the marathon with a bag of 50 kg on their back. Third proposition, aligning crediting period with reality, maximum 20 years. We asked for an alignment. We signed at Livelihoods, we signed contracts with project developers on the ground on 20 years. It's already a real challenge to make sure that those farmers will keep the model and then they will transmit it. Many of them will retire probably before the end of our project. So asking farmers to sign, to commit in a paper on more than 20 years seems to us, it's not because we would dream of having projects on 40, 50 years, 100 years, but it's not realistic to, if we want to embark in Rwanda, we have 2 projects of each 25,000 farms. Total 50,000 farms, imagine. Each of those farmers sign a contract. Can we ask them to go beyond 20 years? Difficult. Monitoring and reporting. To restore the balance between reporting and action, we ask standards to formalize and pilot simplified framework and processes that maintain robust safeguards. It's not about having loose projects, not at all. But how can we make sure that the local NGO we work with are able to, on the one hand, plant the 1 million trees they are supposed to plant in a few years, training the farmers on good agricultural practice, and at the same time spend so much time and energy. It's not just about money, it's about share of mind. They have to focus to succeed, and it's already a challenge. We should not overload them, so it has to be gradual and practical. We believe also that field actors should be more involved in the standards governance. Today, we are consulted sometimes, and it's good, but we believe that we should go beyond that. It's not just about consultation. The current governance of VCM standards is largely top-down and expert-driven, which is fine. But how can we rebalance? Of course, we need experts, but we should also have field practitioners having the capacity to react on the feasibility of what has been decided. So our proposition is to have to create commission with a fair share of representatives of farmers, of NGOs, of practitioners, working closely with experts. And have a dialogue is not one against the other, say working together to have the seriousness of experts, but on the other hand, the practicality of practitioners. And finally, since the Paris Agreement 10 years ago, governments, of course, play an important role in approval of carbon project in their country. And several countries have recently introduced taxation on carbon projects, asking for a share of the credit generated for good reasons to finance their development needs, and we fully understand that. But we want governments to be careful, because when we see the risk of this project, the long term, the fact that investors need to pre-finance, if at the end of the day, despite all the difficulties, the project works, and then the investors are taxed, is it the right way to increase the flow of private investment in this type of projects? So we believe that countries must be very pay attention and clear and create a framework that is very clear on the benefit they expect from climate, but also for their economy and for their society. But the benefit of carbon project must be the output, the benefit for the country. If the benefits are there because the project has been well managed, well designed, well managed, well implemented, at the end we tax, it's not a good way for us to increase the flow of investment. Again, carbon finance is a mean, not an end. To conclude this very too long and technical advocacy, let's keep in mind the reason why we do that, and we are talking about that. Let's keep in mind the extraordinary people that have planted. Ajanta is there. We planted 15 years ago with the women in Sundarbans, huge areas of mangrove trees, and when I see the result 15 years later, it's incredible. Let's have in mind the faces of the farmers in Uganda, in the Philippines, in Peru, in Brazil. That's the reason why we exist, and these people are the poorest of the poor. They are silent. They never make headlines in the media or on social network unless there is a disaster. But in a way, those people are the stewards of our planet, playing a natural role in the degradation, because they can degrade. They are not just good people. They can degrade, they can deforest, they can ruin the soils. But they can also restore if we are able to work in the right direction. How do we prepare the next generation of farmers? How do we make agriculture attractive for younger people. If we do not invest in impactful model, we will generate more anger, more migration, more instability, and probably more violence. In a very fragmented world that seems to have lost its compass, people of goodwill, like I suppose we are, have a collective responsibility to act. And the opportunity to reconciliation in addressing some of the contradictions of our world. Let's not miss this chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. So now we are ready to move to the first panel. So please send the jingle for the people that are online so that everybody from the first panel can join me. Take your seat. You can do a man and woman.
No.
Am I able now, is it okay, to present the speakers for the people online? So it's the technique. So now I was told that it's okay. So for this very first panel, our intention is to be able to discuss the reality of your field experience, your insights, about what does it take to make it work for people. So for that, we have with us, I want to make sure that everybody sees you, we have with us Ajanta that we just presented a day. We are very lucky to have you with us. You are the NGO leader of Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society in India. But when we met, I was very impressed because of your incredible work for the last 15 years. You planted large scale, which is, of course, a topic that matters to us, scale, across your region. And it is the equivalent for many of us that live in Paris of 2/3 of Paris. Can you imagine? So your work with Livelihoods Carbon Fund has been extraordinary, and you will tell us more about it. Thank you for being with us. Margaret. So Margaret Kim is the CEO of Gold Standard. Is a very impressive lady, known for pioneer methodologies. And thanks to your leadership and your incredible work, you have enabled millions to benefit from carbon finance. So it's something to build methodologies, but it's something else, as we just discussed, to build methodologies that work and that enable scale and impact to happen. Thank you for being with us. Pierre-Alexandre Bapst. Thank you so much for being with us. So Pierre-Alexandre is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Hermès. So, of course, he leads the sustainability strategy of Hermès, but beyond this role, he is, I wouldn't say a co-founder, but has been since the beginning in the journey of livelihoods. So we are very curious about this journey because we know that the journey counts. You know, we all have ups and downs in driving the change. And there is also something that is remarkable if you have not heard about it, but I would encourage you to look for Pierre-Alexandre afterwards, is the incredible employee engagement program, because you're championing that. And we all have a lot to learn from. And last but not least, Gilles. Gilles Moynot, who joined Livelihood as the head of climate. And Gilles is also one of the leader who does, with a very impressive experience in leading long-term nature-based programs and projects to improve livelihoods and community resilience. So 25 years, 20 countries, you will see, very impressive. He knows what he's talking about. So without further ado, I may start with you. And our intention is, it's supposed to work, otherwise I'll give you my mic, is to start from your incredible experience and to know exactly why did the voluntary carbon market work so well for you? What was the impact for the people? Because we are here, of course, for climate, but for people. And what does it take for us as well here to scale? And you have succeeded to scale.
Okay, thank you, Isabella, and thank you, Livelihoods, for this opportunity. Actually, I come from an area in India, which is the largest delta in the world. So it's Sundarbans. And just to give you an example, it's like a turtle back and islands, 104, out of which 48 are uninhabited. The tigers also live, and 54 are inhabited, and 5 million people live in that area. So what happens is these islands are protected by earthen embankments, which are very, very fragile and vulnerable. In 2009, the Ayla cyclone, when it hit, it was all saline curse because the embankments had breached. But people understood that where there were mangroves, it didn't breach. So when Livelihoods, I still remember in Kolkata airport, they were there, 3 of them, when they came and said that, okay, we were searching for solutions, nature-based solutions, because mangrove can create that bioshield. And Bernard and Jean-Pierre and Yann came and they said that we are here with the climate finance. To be very frank, we couldn't understand anything, what is carbon, this, that. But we learned, and what we get now is that we have planted 4,500 hectares, more than that, together with the communities, together with the team, co-created with Livelihoods. It was not an easy journey. And when it was created, beyond carbon, I know the investors are having a happy face because we know the carbon, the returns that the project gives, but it's not only carbon. When you create the bioshield, immediately you create and restore the life and the livelihood of these 5 million people, because they are dependent on the nature and the natural resources. And when you create that ambience, that the land is protected, agriculture, aquaculture, and now those stewards have produced their honey, the shrimp, the aromatic rice. The women groups have developed into green brigades. They are talking in Delhi, capital city, talking about their projects. They have formed Badabon Harvest, a company where in the board of directors, out of 7, there are 3 women, and they are selling it to the world, to national world. We are trying to sell it to the world, but unsuccessful like Araku. But we are trying it in national, and it's in the Kolkata and market because it's 100 kilometers only from, it's a very big city. And there you are. So the mangrove stewards that started with that bioshield are now turmeric entrepreneurs, and it's transforming their lives. So that's what a carbon finance has brought to us. It has also transformed news. We were 5 people, now we are more than 100. So it is transforming where it touches, but in the right direction. That's very important. How you co-create, how you co-design, how you bring things for the societal well-being. Ultimately, it's people where we have to look at when we talk about anything, any investment, because it's one society, one planet we are living.
Bravo. It's a very impressive and movable story, I must say. Gilles, based on your experience, I would ask you, what does it take to operationalize this? So what does it really take?
Many things. But first, I would like to say I'm very honored to be part of such a panel, and just to highlight there is someone in the room who gave me the first start when I start my career in Madagascar 20 years ago, and he's a partner of Livelihoods today. So it's a very positive cycle. So
it's
thanks
the
a lot,
family.
Serge.
It's the family reunion.
I mean, without Serge, I won't be here today.
Let's join her further.
So as you said, I've been working in the tropical belt for the last 25 years on climate change, rural development and biodiversity conservation. And maybe I got a few learnings from my experience. It may sound like a common sense to many of you, but however, it's not applied most of the time. So maybe the first one would be long-term support. I mean, if you are looking for changing the behavior, if you want to be transformative, if you want to get impact beyond the results of the project, you have to be involved in the long term. And I joined Livelihoods just 18 months ago, and it's part of my motivation. To be in project when you know that you will be supporting the project for 10, 20 years or even more. I mean, if you are planting a tree, you know that you cannot leave the field after 2 years. You have to be there because we are looking for carbon. I know carbon, it's a mean, not an end, but we need the carbon to fund the project. So we have to be there on the field for a long term. The second one, which is bound to the first one, will be to be working with a real partner. And I may,
real partners, what does it mean?
I mean, we are not looking for service provider. So we need for a partner who is deeply rooted in his landscape, to have someone who will be there beyond the carbon, in times and in space, who is looking for impact beyond the carbon. Because, I mean, the partner is not interested in carbon, not at all. They just want the impact, the results. And maybe the last, and it's all the more important for carbon projects, will be to have tangible impact. I mean, when we are planting trees in mangroves, we are protecting the shore, the villages, from the swells and the waves. So it's tangible for everyone. If you are planting shading trees in cocoa or coffee, you will be improving the yield and the quality. So it's clear, it's tangible for the farmer as well. And if you are distributing biodigester in Bangladesh with Ben, you will be saving time for women. Time that can be used for taking care of the children, just for themselves, or to develop any new economic activity. But I think when you have long-term, deeply rooted partners and tangible impact, you have a win-win agreement between the three parties of the deal.
Common sense, but not so easy to apply, of course, every day. Otherwise, we would not be here. And maybe this is an excellent transition to you, Margaret, because this common sense, which could be felt as easy to apply, we know that it's not so easy. So how do you manage to encapsulate, to ensure all those realities when you ensure a certification system?
So, good evening, everyone. Maggie from Gold Standard. So, I've never been to a panel discussion where I missed my fellow standard leaders so badly. But at the same time, I feel very honored to be here today to really firsthand listen to you and hear from you and reflection of Bernard on concrete call for action based on decades of experience. So I think there's going to be a lot of note-taking on my side and learning from all of you on how to better serve you as a standard body, better support you as a standard body. So I think smallholders, nature-based solutions, everybody talked about it. Carbon is a mere co-benefit, if I can even put a phrase to it, is because every time I visited these projects, none of them on the ground ever talk about carbon. None of them. Carbon is just a background financing mechanism, a catalytic finance that enables this long-term transformational change on the ground. So one of the things that has been frustrating me is our obsession with integrity as a reaction to certain criticism, certain scrutiny. So Gold Standard's been not so easy standard to work with for more than 2 decades, but we haven't changed the way we work. We've been improving the way we work, but we're not changing course in terms of our basic principles of being science-based, inclusive in consulting with broader audience, not just the experts in governance, but opening up for public consultation, getting feedback from all of you, recently more real time, And also making sure that these can deliver impact just beyond, not just carbon, but beyond carbon. So we've been advocating for more than 2 decades that climate has to go hand in hand with sustainable development. And now, after 20 years of fight, we've demonstrated that now Article 6 includes that as a requirement. All these projects do benefit from articulating and monitoring and reporting on those elements. So I do think it's quite important lesson for us as a standard, reflecting on Bernard's earlier remarks, is how do we become more inclusive, and how do we not marginalize the smallholders and marginal communities or most vulnerable communities that are most affected by climate, by not overcomplicating things, and we are a slight culprit to that, but also making sure that there is confidence that buyers can depend on through that certification process, so that the supply side meets the demand and continues to grow and scale.
Thank you so much for this challenging, nevertheless, it's a balance, right, as you move on into this journey. Thank you so much. And Pierre-Alexandre, since you have been there from the early start, I'm going to ask you a question, which is, what have you learned along the way?
I am looking that old, so that's the old guy's question. Well, I think I'm talking about my fellow partners of the investment committee and all the teams from Livelihood, and maybe a few thoughts, because I think the essential has been said by Bernard in his summary and by you with your very profound analysis. Maybe a few things. One, field is king. We are not dealing with financial instruments. We are dealing with things that happen in very far away places with very different people, with natural things. So we have to understand that to create the right project, to select the right people, to follow that with, of course, the rigorous approach and the science-based approach, but allowing that it will not work as organized. I remember when we had this meeting in Burkina Faso where we have a very nice project, and Bernard told me, don't be surprised, in Africa everything happens like you don't expect. The only thing I can tell you is I don't know when. So be flexible on your legs, and that's why. So the field is king, and so we have to be pragmatic and we have to trust local people. And if this project succeeds, it's because we trust people like Ajanta to implement things with her way, with understanding of the local culture, the local habits, the local rules, and so forth, which creates difficulties when we have to apply standards. And I think that's what we have to bridge. I mean, that's one of thing we have to bridge, and to see how we can integrate this flexibility in something that has to be rigid, a standard, because otherwise it doesn't work. Field is king. Maybe point number 2, diversity is also so important. And when I mean diversity, it's not only diversity in the projects, which are kind of a risk-based approach for this kind of VCM and project, but it's also in the way we look at the project. And in Livelihoods, we have managed to have around the table more than 15 different companies that allow us to take investment and decision for the next 20 years.
How do you manage that?
Discussion, open-minded, a charter which aligns us on the major issues, goodwill of everyone. And I think that all these people, they are becoming friends. And here you see the people, they're just friends working together. And I don't know you in your company or in your organization, but being able to manage people that goes together very well for 20 years, that's an important point, and that's a key point of success. And then going back to our project, what does it happen? It happened because we understand and we agree with the sense of purpose which is on the table. The sense of purpose, meaning that why are we doing that? We are doing that for people, we are doing that for the planet, and in the end also for carbon. But carbon is just a result of a work well done for people and planet. And that thing that's important to keep that in mind is that this project, they happen because people then understand what we are doing. Why is it important? I think Warren Buffett said, I don't invest in a company where I don't understand the business model behind. Well, as for myself, as a modest member of the investment committee, I cannot give a sound counsel or advice to the teams if I don't understand what's going on. And family farming allow you to do that. It's important because also you have to make sure that all the people in your company are on board. And as you mentioned, we made a lot of discussions. We took the people to put them in the field in this project. And it's on the same time having people from France going to Indonesia, where they went on the planting activities and discussing with farmers and discussing how we could create links. But goes also with people from Japan coming to Brittany and putting their hands in the soil and counting the worms. Figure out for a Japanese salesperson counting the worm in Brittany. Fortunately, it was not raining, so it was not through Brittany. But so that creates connections, link, understanding. And if you have your people with you in a company, I mean, you've done 50% of the work at least, because then management says, okay, I understand myself, my people understand, we have to move forward and go behind
so
that.
Much.
And maybe a last one, if you allow me, because I think it's important because there is a kind of bashing on all these matters. We have to keep joy and proudness. Like Bernard said, we are doing extraordinary things with extraordinary people. And if you tell me, what do you remember? I remember, as you mentioned, these people that are welcoming us, they don't know what we are. They don't know anything about carbon. But they tell me, well, I left the city. I remember in Pedaru in Andhra Pradesh, this guy in the middle of the field with two trees, and said, I'm going to live here to supervise the growth of these trees. You remember that? And this is things which makes a difference, because then you can put all your energy in making sure that from a technological, scientific, legal point of view, it's working, because you feel responsibility for it.
So about people, reality. So going back to you. We are in this conversation about how to really bridge those standards with the reality. If you had to rewrite, if you were, the one that would be able to do so, if you had to rewrite one rule, not three, one, one rule on those voluntary carbon markets to best serve the communities, what would it be?
Actually, what I feel from the project, the 15th year of the project, we are going through verification, lot of checklists are there, but we need to have the next generation involved in it. Because the youth and the next farmer generation has to be involved in it, the fishers. So what I think is that along with the climate, as Maggie also said, the scientific part of it is very important, wherein biodiversity, it's generating huge biodiversity. Fishes are coming, crabs, 50 crab collectors were there, now 550 crab collectors are there. Okay. Tourism is coming because of the birds are coming. So much of biodiversity, if we are not able to translate the climate benefits, the carbon finance, what has created into all layers of the society, we will not be able to doing justice, to inclusive, as the call was, to be inclusive. So we have to include, I personally think, coming from a conservation background, to have the biodiversity also linked very strongly, but not in a checklist tick modes, but to really involve the local people.
Especially the youth.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you so much. Gilles, a question to you. As you talked earlier about the importance of the partners, what does it really take to go into co-creation into the project design?
First, as a biodiversity lover, I do agree with Ajanta. And then I think Livelihoods has 15 years of experience. And that's why, again, another motivation for me to join the 1 year and a half. But I think the key learning from Livelihoods might be time and human beings. I mean, if you want to develop the right project, you need time and to develop trust, respect, relationship with people. And I could get back to the guy who helped me 20 years ago. But you have 50 people in the staff with a very diverse background. You have people from the social business, people from conservation, like I do. You have people from the rural development, and you have people from the corporate worlds. And it means that you will find the good synergies between people from the partner and someone from the staff to co-develop the right project. Once again, we are not looking for a service provider, neither on the partner side nor on the farmer side. We are looking for not a service provider, but a partner, because we want to be part of the same journey. And the journey, it started with the development of the project. But it's a very long-term process. And once again, we are not speculating on the voluntary markets. So we are not selling credits to the farmer. We are selling impact. So we have to find a niche and the right discussion with the farmer to make them understand what will be the benefit of the project we will be co-developing. And once again, time and human relationship. So we have to take time, which is quite difficult in this world.
Yes. Thank you. I think we got it. Those two messages have been already repeated a few times. Margaret, you have been developing also, how do you address those feedback on those standards around encouraging those standards, encouraging more large-scale players? How do you address that?
So it is one of the challenges. So if I look through this room, this is a very special room. Not all the voluntary carbon market stakeholders think like this room. If it did, then we won't be sitting here talking about how to improve things. So for me, the current evolution of the market is indeed quite challenging, because one hand we have the integrity issue, the legacy issue, where there's a little bit of obsession around integrity beyond, bringing it to the level of beyond pragmatism. The second is also there's challenge in accessibility. And it's not just about smallholder farmers' access to carbon finance, but general project access to carbon finance because of the pure volume of fragmentation and developments that's happening across compliance, domestic markets, including the voluntary carbon market. And finally, scale's not reaching. And therefore, we are faced with these critical challenges, but I also see them as an opportunity where those smallholder farmer projects, those nature-based solutions that include these communities, need to have a strong play in this market evolution. Otherwise, we will lose the battle. And basically, the market will get to 1,000-year permanent tech-based removal and removal only. So we don't want to be there because we've seen that incredible 15, 20 years of impact that livelihoods seen on the ground. So how do we make sure we change the narrative? We build the confidence of the buyers. And as a standard body, what can we do to improve that? I think that's something that we've been thinking a lot about. And we will need innovative partnerships and innovative solutions to think about how do we bridge that gap of non-confidence from the buyer side and supply side continuing to need that finance. So I do take the issue of buffer very seriously. I think that's an innovative solution that we can all think through. And Gold Standard is just at a time where we're reviewing our buffer policy. So hopefully this position paper will be very handy. And second is including the voices into governance. Obviously, it is a very difficult construct, but how do we get the representative to show up to these review meetings and technical discussions? I think this is something that I'm really pushing forward. And very timely, Gold Standard is going through a governance review. So we will take this position paper quite seriously in how to include those voices into decision making and connecting the reality. The last point I do want to highlight is while, for example, in nature-based solutions, land titles and land tenure is a serious challenge, and we do have 30 to 50 year requirement. So one of the things we understood is there are a lot of customary unwritten rules in especially in communities and indigenous communities. So we've had a case where it went through a deviation request. So there is while the official rules are there are ways that we do support smallholder projects and indigenous community projects through these deviation requests. Obviously, we need to find a way to simplify that and make it faster, but it is a route to getting that reality get across to our technical governance bodies.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership and your willingness to bring the voices to the table. It's a very promising mindset, I believe. Pierre-Alexandre, you have been since the beginning a true believer, a true contributor to the fund, and you have also shared the way you act and you contribute. What would it really take to bring your peers along to do the same?
Well, I think it's already the case. There are many people on the marketplace who are trying to accommodate this stuff. The difficulties maybe is to manage short-term and long-term and small number and big numbers. Short-term and long-term, we have to. All the companies have challenges on their long-term equations, and here we're talking about 250 or maybe 20 years only from now, so 245. But that's a difficulty. And if you sell dreams, I come back to what I said previously. It's not a difficulty. If you just say we are going to do great things at a reasonable cost, you have a selling argument. I would say I would encourage my peers to place this with a positive vision more than on defensive side. And say, look at what SBTI is looking for. We'll have to go through that. Also, you still have to have a robust SBTI-like project. Second idea is small number, big numbers. Bernard mentioned that. Half an hectare as an average holding for a farmer. For a family farmer, half an hectare. And we've done more or less 100,000 hectares. Yes. I'll let you do the math. So how can you make this number with that small holding? And in companies which are not all like Switzerland, where people are organized very neatly and very clear to manage and so forth. Hello to my friends in Switzerland. So it's really a challenge. And if you look at it from an external point of view, you say it's just impossible. But not only is it possible, but it's so great a way to work. I mean, to make sure that we embark a lot of people in this. And I go back to the sense of purpose. We'll need to have this for the investor. We need to have this for the people on the field, who do not care at all, at least for most of them, about carbon, even when they know the number and the name. They are about their livelihoods. But we'll have to find really the way to put a sense on what we do, to accommodate this with local words, to local people, to accommodate this to investors, but also to accommodate this to what is required by investors and so forth. And I think that's really important. And lastly, and for a company like Hermès, it's natural, but accept long term. And say that we should not be afraid of long term, but long terms need rapid action. So that's why we need to decide now and to make sure that we create the conditions under what is going on in this regulation for us to invest for the future. I won't say for our children, but at least for the people that will be there, because in 2050, I think that most of the people in this room will not be there to see the results. But we have to prepare for that. I'm speaking just for me. Sorry.
Never
yes.
know. Thank you so much, and please join me by congratulating and thanking the panel. Thank you so much.
Maybe.
Thank you so much, and you will have a chance to speak to each of them afterwards, as you will. Thank you so much. Yes, good job. As Bernard is saying. So the jingle is sent to the people that are online. We have a lot of people online. So I'm welcoming the second panel. Please join me on stage while we are sending the jingle to the online people. Okay. So in this session, we're not going to discuss what is happening, but the conditions to make it happen at scale. So without further ado, I'm going to present my dear panelists. I'm going to start with Paloma. Paloma Adams-Allen is today President and CEO of Airlink. I encourage you to discover about this incredible non-for-profit organization really helping in a very challenging situation. A former USAID deputy and a Livelihoods board member. So given her role, she will bring the global perspective about also private-public partnership in this matter. Christian Didier. Christian is today partner at Deloitte and in charge of climate and sustainability, and has been providing technical and investor-focused views, a long-term strong experience in this field of carbon market finance, which you will see. Fidel, who is online, I believe, can you please confirm? Can the team confirm that Fidel is online? 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Fidel, do you hear us?
Yes,
Maybe.
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. So hopefully we'll have your face. So Fidel Bengua is the secretary. Oh, yes, we see you. We're very happy to see you. Thank you so much. So Fidel is the permanent secretary of Rwanda Ministry of Environment. So you will see that he will provide strategic insight about what is happening at the forefront of climate action and environmental governance in Rwanda, of course. We have Eric Soubeiran, who welcomed us before, who we all know here as the CEO of Livelihoods. He has a very strong experience, of course, in that field, with corporate experience at Danone, Unilever. He's also a member of the gold standard, I would say tribe, but beyond that, and a community-led partner. But I could not introduce this very special person without saying that for me, Eric is an amazing leader that sees beyond the horizon about what is coming. That is very much a person that is moved with purpose, that changes lives of people, and that is loyal to his tribe and the people around him. This is why we love him so much. So I'm very happy and thrilled to be here. And last but not least, Gilles. Gilles Vermeaux-Desroches is one of the strong leaders in France for the people that are around the world with us. Gilles is the Chief Citizenship Officer at Schneider Electric, one of the pioneers in the world, and the chairman of the board of Livelihoods. So you are leading Schneider Corporate Sustainability Strategy, which is, of course, somebody that everyone in this room is looking at because at being such a pioneer. But given your journey, as we mentioned with Livelihoods, we are also very keen about understanding your experience and your views on this amazing action and funds. So without further ado, I'm going to start with you, Paloma. The intention is really to understand the component of how we can make it scalable and work. So given your experience, we would love to hear more about what does it take to make this private-public partnership work, and what are your hopes around that?
Well, thank you so much, Isabelle, for having me. Thank you, Eric and colleagues. It's fantastic to be here. You know, I think we're dealing with a current context that can be depressing at times. I was most recently at USAID during a period where we did massive investments in climate and addressing the climate crisis. And so we're looking now globally at a decline in public funds, not just from the US, but lots of governments are looking at whether they can afford to continue to fund a response to climate in the way that they used to. And I think it's important just to remember historically what public funds do is buy down the risk for private investors to be comfortable, especially of funding nature-based solutions like those that Livelihoods supports, and creating a regulatory environment and markets like the Voluntary Carbon Market, right, to make sure that we can all participate. So there's a legacy there, and there will definitely be a gap, but we're not without public funding. There's still public funding going in. There are philanthropies that are stepping up to try to fill that gap, so I don't think we should be hopeless. This work will be continuing. I do think there is an opportunity in crisis in the sense that the voluntary carbon market in particular is created to generate funding and financing to address these issues. So this is the moment, as Bernard laid out, I thought so brilliantly in the paper, to really look at that ecosystem and that mechanism to make sure that it's working as the tool to drive funding and not simply getting us all, sort of stuck on the verification and the challenge that you're dealing with. And the goal, you all are trying to figure out how to balance, integrity versus inclusion. I mean, ultimately, we are all dealing with carbon because it is a threat to our planet. It's a threat to people. And so we have to really think about how we're going to use this opportunity now to mobilize financing and to bring all of the finance solutions to the table, not simply sort of over-rely and over-index on public funding being available or not.
And what is your hope there?
My hope is that we use this opportunity, just like we have this community in this room, to look at all the possible solutions and to think about how to make sure that, for instance, the voluntary carbon markets are fit for purpose and for this moment.
The point about fit for purpose. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paloma. Christian, we would love to hear your initial reaction, given your expertise on this position paper.
I think it's a very interesting position paper for many reasons. First reason is that it's really a good reminder of the role of agriculture for our planet. And sometimes we tend to forget that the role of agriculture is not only to feed the population, obviously, but it's also to manage landscapes, to be the guardian of our natural capital. We mentioned already the impact of biodiversity, but it's the same on water, it's the same on many other aspects. And I think that it's also a way to reassert the fact that agriculture is bringing some solutions to the climate crisis, which are valid for a while, which has very positive track records. So I think that the first value of the position paper is this. And there is another reminder, which is that there is 1/3 of global population which works in agriculture. And when we think of agriculture as a solution to climate crisis, it's also a contributor to changing the livelihood of people, to having a very high social impact, and to really call for designing investments, not only for carbon yield, as we said before, but really to make sure that we are building instruments which will bring intensive, high, credible impacts on people's life. And I think the former panel really led to this conclusion.
Yes. So now we're going to listen to Fidel, and I don't know where I'm supposed to stand. So I will I'll step out to make sure that everybody sees you, Fidel. You may not see me, but that's okay. So the question to you, Fidel, as you represent the Rwanda government, is what are your main expectations from these projects? Can you tell us more about, what are your expectations? How do you select them? Please tell us a little more about the how.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for having me. Our expectations are very simple. We're truly just trying to achieve climate resilience for our country. And then we also want to have a certain level of sustainability that comes with that when you look at the communities that live in the landscapes that we're trying to protect from climate change impacts. So when we look at projects and when we're trying to see who are the partners that we should engage with, we're looking at those people who are going to have a community-centered approach, where in what they're doing, one, they put the interests of community members in front of everything that they do. They engage them in the various planning instruments that they're using, so that when we look at the impact, which is the last thing that we look at, the impact of what we want to achieve. Do we see it, sorry? And then can we trace a sustainability? Can we tie sustainability to that impact by having these types of projects that leverage carbon finance coming in to support those community members as they continue to maintain the various activities that we put on the ground. Depending on what we're trying to do when we talk about nature-based solutions, we might not be looking at these projects as initial capital investment, but we can definitely rely on them for the various operation expenditures that we need, which basically are resources that go back to the communities. So we have a country that is a bit challenging from a topography perspective. So sometimes when we talk about nature-based solution, it's really heavy investment that we need to make, and we might rely on other financing sources. But ultimately, having the voluntary carbon market or even Article 6.2 in some cases, it helps us sustain those activities. And that's truly what we get from these projects, that benefit of sustaining and maintaining our nature capital accounts.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Interesting to, again, put communities at first. So maybe, Eric, in times of uncertainty, how do you really build this long-term impact? How do you see that? How do you encourage progress versus perfection?
Well, I think there is a very, very simple rule that we have at, and I don't think we have to be prescriptive, because I think these things are very complex, because we work with human beings, right? And in cultural contexts that are very different. And I think we have one say in livelihood that says we need to be pragmatic with principles. And I think that's very important. I think this long-term perspective, knowing that you are there, and I think the framework in which we operate has a 20-year horizon. And I think we're very lucky to have investors and partners that partner with us for 20 years. And I think we should always be thankful about that. But this trust and loyalty is something that you earn as well. And you earn because you're pragmatic and you're delivering results that are real on the field. So it's a win-win mechanism. So I think the only way to manage this horizon is really actually to do things, first of all. And I know it sounds very basic, but that's the reality. You need to create change. And create change is about spending time with people. It's about being on the field. It's about creating community. This is why you're here today. Because, yes, I think we can be very proud and very happy to have our partners with us, to have friends with us, to have mentor with us in the room, to have the standard with us, who is very daring of coming there today with this paper. And I think we can thank the standard to be here. And the fact that it's a gold standard, it means something also. So I think all this is time invested on people. And very often we are, and I'm very struck about these things, right? Which is, people say that, okay, they don't have time, especially in Paris, people love to say, I don't have time. Well, I think, for me, busy is a new stupid. So the less busy you are, the more open you are to discover and to test and learn. And I think that's what about community building is. So it's about spending time creating this community. And yes, you need to invest. And it's true that, I was in India 3 weeks ago in one of our projects to be developed, and I was amazed about the work done by the partner there. And I was so touched about the way these people, and I lived 7 years in India, about developing self-help group with women there. And I know how hard it is, because I've failed many times to create this self-help group in India especially. And you could see those ladies talking about how this type of project has changed their lives. And I'm looking at you, and their position in the village. The fact that they're able to talk, communicate with people. But this is time. It's time invested in relationship. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Eric. So Gilles, from a corporate citizenship perspective, but beyond that, I'm reading the paper, but beyond that, given your experience, basically, what do you consider a project that is truly credible or purpose-driven? That's the question. So what does it really mean to drive something that matters, basically?
Thank you. I'm sure words are very powerful. You joke with corporate citizenship. Why do we use this word in Schneider Electric? Today, when we are speaking about sustainability, the unique answer of states, city, companies, people, is a way to be carbon neutral and to reduce carbon emission, which is the topic of the century. And we need to do that. But certainly, the white line is not the best solution, first thing. When we use the word corporate citizenship, we embark many topics where we are obliged to take into account the society, the people, and the reality, not only the question of carbon. We were in charge of sustainability, Bernard and myself, 20, 25 years ago. It was a dream between people, planet, and profit. It was a question of many different topics. Today we know that the question of carbon is key for the climate. We have a lot of very bad news about this topic, and we know that we have to face that. But with the word carbon citizenship in Schneider Electric, where to reduce carbon emission is a job of Schneider Electric. No problem with that. It's our performance, our vision. We are the partner of everybody, the technological partner to shift to electricity, to shift to decarbonization, to shift to digital. No problem with that. But never we will solve the problem of the planet, of the people, if we take into account only this technological way, first thing. Second thing, it's interesting, and I would like to congratulate the team of Livelihood. We were pioneers. Because if we would like to build the bridge between the discussions that we have now and what's happened in Europe, in France now, we are speaking about just transition. Never, 15 years ago, this topic was on the table of the discussion when we are speaking about transition. Why are we speaking about just transition? Because it's not possible to organize the transition if we don't take into account the people, especially the poor people. We have a long experience about that in France, when we decide a lot of things in order to accelerate transition, without a vision about the consequence for the poor people. Each time we come back, not at the place where we were, but it was more complicated because we're back far. And livelihood is linked to this question of just transition at the worldwide level and in the country where we are. I think it's interesting to make the bridge about the fact that 15 years ago we had this idea that we have to take to be with the people, with the reality, to speak about carbon, but to speak about carbon with a nature-based solution to embark the question of biodiversity in the same reality.
So, Gilles, how do you on this point? How do you reward, or what is needed to reward those co-benefits, not just from an environmental perspective, but
yes,
from a social perspective?
But again, the answer is in the name of livelihood. Do you imagine 15 years ago, when the team used this word livelihood? It's not only to capture carbon. It's not only to produce carbon for offsetting of the member of the livelihood. We use another word, which I don't know, carbon master, carbon dynamic, I don't know, but not livelihood. We understand when we use the word livelihood, we are speaking about the people who are in the field where we invest. It's not possible to be in another position. And that give to livelihood, the team, the projects that we have for the 15 years, a big strength to speak about the topics that Bernard mentioned, because we build relationship. We build a lot of relationships. That is my last comment about a global vision with your question.
some of us, we were friends at the beginning, but many of us, we are friends now because we are together in the projects of livelihood. Very often, and I would like to thank again the team, we can say, oh, I need to read the slideshow, to go to the committee, it's enough to come back to my company, which invests a lot of this project, to say, okay, we have a lot of carbon credit, it's enough for you to know that. The other, it's a mechanism somewhere, etc. But we decide to spend time to go together in Rwanda, very good visit three months ago, or in India previously, or in some other country. We met the people. We have relationship with the project. It's why we are not able to, yes, we are not able to speak about this project in the same manner that only if we see the slideshow, the picture and so on. And with that, for our company, it's not only a commitment, but we need to contribute to advocacy because we have another vision of the reality of the world. Mm-hmm. The question of food is key, especially in Africa, but not only in Africa. And when we consider that we have an holistic manner to be involved, it's certainly the best manner for our company to complement our road to net zero carbon with offsetting. Because if we are not able to have a very good narrative which embarks the social reality, biodiversity, climate, never our companies will be able to use this carbon credit to offsetting and to continue to be at the top level of sustainability.
Thank you, Gilles. Bravo for your commitment. Last round of questions, and then we'll go to the conclusion. As we are understanding that we are here to create better pathways, right, to scale. Paloma, what do you believe? So we understand that perfection is not what we're aiming for. No. So how do we create political will to really iterate and make drive the standards harmonization at the same time prioritizing inclusion? Not an easy question, but
yeah, thank you.
How would you?
I believe strongly that we need to figure out some other or additional ambassadors for this conversation and this cause beyond us policymakers, climate experts, the global north in general. Because I think to Gilles' point, these projects are way beyond, and to Ajanta's point, way beyond carbon, right? The impacts they're having on lives is about survival, about dignity, about the future, about robust rural economies, et cetera. And so I think we need to be able to get a constellation of people together, yes, policymakers, yes, the private sector, civil society, where we try to demystify what do we mean by these standards? Like, what is this market? How does that translate then into improvements in your lives? And so I spend a lot of my days talking to my team about demystifying the jargon that we use to speak about our work and humanizing it so that it is accessible. And hence, I think if we can do better case making, then the people will push on their own policymakers, right? The political will be created. We can't be the only advocates for that. And so thinking about the next stage of this conversation being about bringing in more people into this conversation who can then put pressure on their own governments or on I don't want to put the pressure on you, but who will be at the table as you're being more inclusive about that conversation. So for me, it's about inclusion and the way we talk about this work and who brings the message forward.
We are all advocates, so it's important. Christian, on this, what do you believe are regulatory innovations and how can it help really smallholder-centered and nature-based solution? So how can regulation help this dimension versus the big project that is not really connected?
I think, Isabelle, you are really good at asking very difficult questions, so it's 2 in a row. I think if you are today in the shoes of a decision maker in a company, you are looking very carefully at the carbon markets. You are looking at 2 things. First, You don't want to be next mentioned in the Guardian's blacklist in every other year when it's issued in March. So you are very careful with the projects you want to select, with the types of impact you will have. You are also quite worried about the change you see in the standards, pushing for maybe higher integrity and pushing for farmers to commit on 3, 4, 5 generations to make sure you have the permanence of carbon credits, which is a bit challenging when you are in a company. And at the end, you are maybe overwhelmed by this integrity topic and forgetting all that made livelihoods for the last 15 years, which is the real impact on people's livelihood, the real development of resilience for the most vulnerable ones. That's the risk you see. And at the same time, you also see that you have been committing for the last 5 years on net zero. And we made in Deloitte a study recently showing that the market would need to be multiplied by 25 in size, at least in the next 20 years, so 25 more or less, to cope with the need of carbon removals that you will need in sequestrations if all companies really do what they said some years ago. So you have mixed feelings just because of these different and opposite moves. What to advise? First, let's all recognize the actual impact of nature-based solutions. We are in a world where technology is really driving the discussion, where projects are really at the pilot scale so far. Nature-based solutions are proven for years, and they are really impacting people's lives and preserving ecosystems locally. So we are really developing people's resilience. 2 maybe very technical topics which could bring a solution. First, we have already mentioned the way of sharing the risk. So we have mentioned the fact that the buffers in project design may be excessive or maybe refraining companies from going as far as they could in investing on carbon. So could we think about most efficient schemes like insurance, like, for example, giving back what's left at the end to project owner or to project developer? That's I would say, one direction I would explore. And second, I would be very interested as well to get the voluntary market closer to the regulated market, which is also driving some discussions, because each time you are bringing regulation to the game, you are adding transparency, and I'm sure that transparency is good for livelihood and might be less good for other players who have been financing projects with lower impact on solar energy or on very different topics. And last but not least, when you bring regulation closer to the voluntary market, you are growing volumes because you are creating new dynamics.
That is what we hope, all of us.
And what we see, for example, in France with climate resilience, which is supporting the growth of the label Bas Carbone for the airline industry, for example.
Thank you so much, Christian. So maybe I will go again to you, Fidel. Fidel, the question to you is, how do you create fair conditions that works basically to attract private sector for this type of projects?
So I think I'll speak from a government perspective here. The only thing that we can do is basically just have clear rules and regulations, like frame exactly what you're walking into as an investor. And that's what we've tried to do in Rwanda, where we have a national carbon market framework that hopefully in the near future we can turn into an actual law or legal instrument. So that already brings a level of trust in what we're trying to do. And then it's also a part where we need to be clear with investors in terms of where are you going to have the most impact. So we created an investment framework at a national level, looking at where you can have the most impact if you're trying to invest in a nature-based solution project. And we are looking at it at a catchment level. We've detailed, painstakingly detailed everything that you would want to use and leverage as an investor. So having everything out in the open so that you know exactly where to invest, how to invest, the rules that you will be playing with, and then also creating various technologies to help you in the work that you're trying to do. To make it easy, for example, for you to pay the smallholder farmers, like having a strong banking system where you can trace every single payment that you're making. All those little things that we try to do, we've tried to do as a government, because we're a small country, so I'm not expecting to get a huge volume of carbon credits, but we're hoping to at least have the most trusted ones. So that's what we're going for, and that's what we push to have a good environment for investors.
Thank you so much, Fidel. And I'm not going to do the same round. I will start with you, Gilles, to make sure that you do a brief and short answer for every one of us. So, no joke here. As you have been, demonstrating yourself all your life that sustainability solutions are good for a good business, basically. What are your hopes right now as we are launching this paper? Briefly, one hope.
I don't know if you have to share hope or dream, but better to be activists together. The first topic is, it's not, we don't have to organize an opposition between farmers, small projects, and measurement, integrity, and so on. Because that is a mistake. We could have small project with right level of integrity. And I would like to be clear of that. We have to measure, we have to be very strong about the project in the support of the people and for the carbon credit, first topic. But never for me, sustainability is a trade-off. Never for me, sustainability it's a question of regulation, reporting, manner to compare what is not possible to compare. It's a question of will, risk, innovation, and to go deeply in the reality. If not, it's not sustainability. Just okay, the series of the cake, the cherry of the cake of the company. We are not in this dynamic with livelihood, and certainly the company who are invest in this project. Because we have to invest in this project, because we have to convince the CFO of the company, the compliance of the company, many other actors. Just, we are very serious. I don't want to put here, we have the romantic people with dream and with livelihood, and we are here the very serious people with big project, not science-based target, but blah, blah, blah. It's not true. We need to have that in mind, first thing. And perhaps we are more innovative. One more. Perhaps it's a question for our company of innovation too. We need to be strong on that, and we need to say that. We are not against our own interest. And if I have a dream, to conclude, and the dream is the discussion that I have with Bernard and we have in the middle of livelihood. We have a relationship with this community for 20 years. Do we have to support differently these communities to be the partner of the development of the community? We are partner with the project that we have because it's very good for this community to have trees on the very small part of the land that they have, to be in a better agriculture, to be supported, to be blah, blah, blah. But perhaps, and because it's a job of Schneider Electric, when I'm in the villages with a team of livelihood and so on, and I see the people without access to electricity, without access to drinking water, without access to digital, when we know that the company who are investors in livelihood are able to contribute to that, do we have an obligation, a responsibility, and I don't know which word I can use to express that, okay, we have this project together, we know how we are far and how we are different, but perhaps my dream is to go ahead, and Bernard knows that very well.
Thank you so much, Gilles. Thank you for your passion and dedication. So to close this session, a last question to you, Eric, and then I think you will give a final words before everybody leaves for the drink to have conversation, is that this paper suggests dedicated pathways that Bernard explained. What do you expect from private public collaboration to help us scale this?
Well, I would say pragmatism with principles. You know, so I think the private-public collaboration is always something that is complex. I've been in sustainability long enough to I mean, we've been through many conferences talking about blended finance, public-private collaboration, etc. So I think at the end of the day, I think probably we need to reverse the thinking. Is how do we make sure that we start from the impact we want to have, and what are the best and future fit tool for that? And I think if your question is a dream, if I had a dream, is to think about policy that way, and not policies like, okay, I have a pocket of money somewhere and I want to use it to my own interest. No, it's about, okay, fundamentally looking at the needs and what are the best tools. And I really fundamentally believe that the best technology we have in hand is nature. And that Mars sucks. And that if we are really serious, we need to consider nature and the people who are actually stewarding the nature seriously. Because that's the only way we can protect our lifeline for the next generations. So I think we need to probably put the narrative a bit upside down and look at it from that angle, because we're on the dreaming phase.
Yes. Thank you so much. Please, Eric, you need to stay.
I need to stay. Okay.
To give the final word. So before Eric joins, you understood that the carbon market is a mean, not an end. And the intention that we'll have is to serve the people that matters.
Thank you very much, and I think Isabelle deserves a round of applause also. She's been kind enough to stop by Paris before going to, I think, the Peter Drucker's Forum, so thank you for being with us. So, I mean, dear friends, dear colleagues, I mean, that's I think over the past hour, almost an as we've traveled a powerful journey together when you think about that. We began with a very simple, and the most difficult questions are always simple, like when the childs are asking questions, right? How can the voluntary carbon market truly serve both people and planet? And we've heard from the field, and thank you very much for our partners to be there, from the Soubeiran to Rwanda. Thank you very much, Fidel, to be with us as well. Voices that I think at the end of the day remind us that climate action is not an abstract equation, it is a lived reality. And we've heard from investors, from our partners, from the standard setters, who share the same hope that integrity must remain our compass, but inclusion must be our engine. And I think that's very key for me. The position paper that was outlined and that we launched today, it's not a critique. It's a contribution. It's a modest contribution. We're a small organization. We're a community. But we want to have our voice. And it reflects 15 years of field experience. 15 years of farmers planting trees, restoring soil, reviving ecosystem, and proving that carbon finance can change lives when it's designed with and not for the communities. Its message is clear. If we want integrity to deliver impact, we must keep the system in motion. And that's key. That means aligning rules with reality, ensuring permanence is measured not in centuries of theory, but in the lifetimes of farmers. It means simplifying, not weakening, our reporting system, so that people spend more time restoring forests than filling spreadsheets. It means acknowledging that customary land rights and community trust are not obstacles, but they are assets that have been grounded in centuries of culture development. And we need to respect that. That's the foundation of resilience that have kept rural societies alive for generations. Above all, it means remembering that the voluntary carbon market is a mean, it's not an end. It's a vehicle to channel private finance into what really matters: thriving ecosystems, resilient livelihoods, and a safer climate for all. And tonight, as we close this first Livelihoods Rendezvous, I want to thank every one of you our investors, our partners, our friends, the practitioners on the field that are here, that are connected, the investors, the standard setters for coming together with openness and sometimes courage to be here. You've proven that when dialogue replaces dogma, collaboration becomes possible, like Gilles was mentioning. The next step is ours to take. Together, I think in the months ahead of us, the paper will travel. We will take it to the standard bodies, to the COP30 in Belém, to government and corporates, and to everyone shaping the future of this market. But more than that, it will be with us on the field in spirits, with our farmers in Ghana, in India, in Brazil, who are showing us every day that nature is still our most powerful technology. Let's carry this momentum together. Let's move forward, translating ideas into action and principles into practice. The real success of this market will not be in the tons it counts, but in the trust it builds, not in the credit it trades, but in the communities it strengthens. This is how we turn a mechanism into a movement. Because integrity is our compass, inclusion our path, then impact will be our destination. Thank you very much, and let's keep the system moving. We take a photo? Yeah. All the panelists here, if you can come for a picture. Bernard.
My least favorite part. Yes.
Voilà, c'est parfait. Merci.